NFL owners meetings continuing out in Florida, and Falcons head coach Raheem Morris said today the team does not expect Kirk Cousins to show up at OTAs or any voluntary workouts leading up to this season. Dianna Russini talked about Kirk Cousins and the Browns potentially. This from the Scoop City podcast.
They still have so many questions at quarterback, which brings us to Kirk Cousins, right? Is that a real thing for Atlanta to trade Kirk to Cleveland? From my sense, yes. It's a real. I don't know how far along it is right now. I just know there's enough smoke around this and enough conversations being had that this would not be a surprising move. Knowing Kevin Stefanski coached Kirk Cousins when he was in Minnesota, it makes a lot of sense on why that would work.
Let's welcome in Jake Burns from BrownsFilmBreakdown.com. Jake, you hear a lot of things about Kirk Cousins. What he would give you is a guy who has played a lot of NFL football and has played with Kevin Stefanski in that relative scheme that you expect the Browns to run.
Yeah, I think Kirk is intelligent enough and far enough removed from the Achilles injury that he suffered back in Minnesota that I do think he's got a couple of years of returning to respectable football. I certainly don't think that arm is what it used to be, and I don't think the already limited athleticism is going to ever get to the level it was. But I think if you're looking for somebody who understands what Kevin's looking for, how they're asking to read things out, maybe a little bit more freedom at the line of scrimmage to alter plays to fit against defenses, because a guy who's been around the verbiage of what Kevin likes to call offensively and certainly around the structure and schematic design, I think that there can be a level of competence that comes with that. Pretending like Kirk is maybe the 2022 version of what he used to be, I think is at this point tough to envision totally coming back. I think you also have to consider that he found most of his greatest success inside dome environments, and both between Minnesota and Atlanta, those were situations where he played a majority of those games inside. So really the way I would phrase it as, I'm worried about him at his age playing a majority of football games outside where the weather has a bit more of an impact. But do I think he can be good enough to help them in a manner that is far less restrictive than what Deshaun did last year and far less restrictive than the turnovers Jameis Winston provided? I think there's a world where that's possible. But you have to ask yourself, how much money do you have to eat to do that? And then ultimately, if you're eating a lot of the money to do that, if you're not, maybe Atlanta's eating that money, what draft pick are you giving up to make that happen? So I don't think it's a slam dunk. I think Kirk wants to play, and I think he can provide a level of play that's better than who's on the market right now, to be very clear. But it then becomes, what are the levels to that mean something that, we have to give up to get him. And then ultimately, if it's week 8 and he's thrown 4 touchdowns to 6 interceptions and he can't drive the football downfield, especially, outdoor football is giving him some restraints, I think then you start to be like, did we make the right move there? So I think that I understand the hesitancy from the Brown side to give up anything of real relevance to make that happen. I think the most appealing thing, and I'm sure you guys would agree with me, was the idea that you could get Kirk on a similar veteran minimum deal that the Steelers were able to luck into with Russell Wilson last year. So you don't have that, and then it becomes you have to pay him double, a multi-million-dollar contract that gets north of $10 million, or you have to give up a 4th-round pick for him. That's where it's not quite as comfortable. I think, again, house money situation where you're offset language, he gets a minimum contract and he's just collecting money from Atlanta still, different discussion. But a discussion around a draft pick that is meaningful, or, eating into a large amount of your cap that you're uncomfortable with, then it's tough. So I think that I respect what Dianna is saying. I just feel like that whole situation is a little dicier than we want to believe. And I think what was reported a couple weeks ago about Kirk waiting until after the draft to sort of scout out what places he would be willing to be traded to with his no trade clause, I think that's the most logical thing. Who really needs a quarterback post draft because they didn't get a guy in that draft? and then kind of going from there so that he's not blindsided or put into another situation where Michael Penix is a player that they select and it's just your season is a countdown to the next guy. I think he wants a chance to get that long-term 16, 17 game start. But again, how likely is that, and how willing is Atlanta, who's playing hardball here, to come off that player?